All right. We got 2 more weeks left, y'all. Today and then next week. We'll be through Revelation. It's wow. So this is the first time I actually have it all on YouTube or all on my videos saved on my thing. So actually, on occasion, someone asked, do you have all your sermons, on a file, or do you have them all written down? I have most of them written. I say most of them, a lot of them written down. I've gotten less organized of late. But if you got to write a book, no, I never have done that. I won't let my wife throw away my notes. My notes, but really, it's really not essential. But Revelation was that curious book that that we don't have. I don't have as far as something that I can give someone says, hey, here's the seminar on Revelation. So, but I have it this time through. And I was thinking about that, even as I go through, God showed me Revelation probably up to 20 years ago is when he did it. I don't remember exactly when, but nearly 20 years ago. Although he keeps giving me new stuff, he never changes the calendar. He never has. And to me, that gives me a solidity, stability, confidence in that what he gave me was right, reliable, and true. Because when he gives you the truth, he just keeps building on it. And that's what he's done for me in Revelation. And so today we're going to be in 21 and possibly part of 22, because 22 continues on it. The chapters and verses in Scripture aren't the inspired part of God's Word. The translators put those in early on. They just stuck with it. This was probably written more like a letter. So all that to say is sometimes it seems like the chapter breaks are not where they should be. That's not the inspired part. They might not be where we would say they should be. It doesn't do anything about the dependability of Scripture, but you'll see that here, 22, the first few verses kind of go on into the new heaven and new earth still, as we started talking about it in 21. So, all right, this is the new heaven, the new earth. This is what we've been singing about in our churches for years. This is it. And I saw 21:1. Let me make sure I'm recording this. Yes, I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. This earth is not going to be cleaned up and go on forever. This one's going to be done away with. There's some popular pastors who believe that that's not the case. Even among the Baptist realm, I'm thinking Jeffress. Robert Jeffress at First Baptist Church, and I have a lot of respect for the man, but we were going to a place, and I couldn't believe he said this. He was just saying that the earth is going to be, the fire means it's going to be stripped of its sinful nature, and we're just going to be living on a cleaned up earth. No, that's not what it says. I'm not sure if you've been listening to too many Jehovah's Witness tapes or what. It says the new heaven, new earth, and it could be renewed and new in that way. But when Peter goes into the fact, when you look at the Greek of Peter, where it talks about even the elements will be dissolved, that means the elements will be dissolved. There'll be no more O2 or O1. There'll be no more hydrogen. No more. It's going to be completely different, completely wiped away. So that's my stance on all that. It's just the old one's completely in a way. The only resemblance or reflections of this cosmos is going to be in Gehenna and the new heaven and the new earth. And so they do that. You might be, for instance, if a pastor comes in, those would be some good questions to ask a pastor. A person coming in for a prospect of the thing, ask them the thorny questions. When I came to Lawn Terrace, I told them all the thorny places I was at. So they knew coming in, this is where I stand. Doctrines of election, the King James Bible, and those kinds of things. I brought them all up. And I was actually supplied to preach for a lot of months before they actually called me to be the pastor there. We covered all those, and I didn't hold nothing back. Isn't it horrible to come in there and all of a sudden you recognize your pastor doesn't believe what? Or does believe what? Ask them the questions before they come in, Yeah. So that would be a good thing to do. But, yeah, I believe this heaven and earth will all be passed away. I believe in a young earth theory. Fact is, I believe, when I say young earth, 6,000 years. It started about 6,000 years with two people called Adam and Eve, period. Day 6, they were made. Period. How God did it, I don't know, but that's how it happened. In fact, I think clearly in Hebrews 11, it tells us the pastors and the teachers who do not believe that have disqualified themselves from teachers and preachers. And so there's a lot of pastors who have faulted on that and some other ones that we've compromised on. You should ask them that question and hope they give you their honest, sincere answer and not be deceptive in it. Anyway, so yes, there'll be a new heaven and new earth, for the first heaven and first earth were passed away, and then there was no more sea. Again, that was one of those little teasers that I didn't know, and God, I think, gave me in a pretty, at least beginning way, which come with a satisfaction. No more sea, because the new heaven and new earth, it's for God first, and he doesn't want to be reminded of it. No more sea. There's going to be no resemblance of a sea here, because I don't want to look on this book and see the whole thing and then be reminded of that. And again, I think it's...
Okay, so it looks like earth has passed away, there was no more sea, and the first heaven was passed away also.
Yes.
So that's this entire universe?
There's that's a great thought to think through, because there's like three heavens. The heavens where the birds fly, the heavens where the stars are, and then the heaven where God resides. Does it mean all three? Or does it mean two?
Yeah.
So I would say all of it. God's going to make himself a new showroom. A new residency.
Now, is this after the millennium?
Yes, this is after it all, by the way. We just went... No, actually... This is after the millennium. We saw the millennium... I want to say it's not in this one. No, this is after the millennium. This is after totally. Yeah. I'm trying to think. We went through the millennium last week, but it's been a week that's happened. So, yeah, this is after the millennium. This is new heaven, new earth. This is after the church age. After the millennium. Now we're really having to rethink. Now we're in the new heaven and new earth. And so there'll be none of this is left. It'll only be memory in a mansion. But we're going to see a lot of the memory details in the mansion coming up. So, yeah, it's going to be after that. And that's good to ask, because to keep the calendar straight, Abraham. Abraham didn't have the law. The law didn't come till Moses. Well, Moses was before Abraham, right? Oh, Moses was way after Abraham. And it helps us keep things straight in that. Where did Moses get the information from Genesis come from when it came, the information in Genesis, creation? Some of it happened like up to 2,000 years before Moses. Where did he get that from? It gets us to be thinking in the right direction.
Was Abraham a Jew?
No, technically he was not. He was the federal head of the Jew, and actually a Jew refers to Judah, which is only one of the tribes of the 12, which actually probably includes two of the tribes of the 12, southern tribe versus northern tribe. But again, you have to be thinking through that. Like, was Abraham a Christian? Yeah. Well, he's saved. That's where we have to think through that, and I'm glad you asked that question, Alan, because where are we on the calendar of things? This one's done.
Well, I didn't know if it might be the beginning of the millennium or...
It's over. It's the short season when Satan is loosed is over. Satan and his minions are all cast into the lake of fire forever and ever, and perhaps never to see them again. Maybe. I'm not sure if God has other angels on assignments. He might say, you will never do anything for me again. We don't know. We will know that in heaven. And actually, it's an interesting thought. When we get to the new heaven and new earth, actually, even during the millennium, the angels will be our servants. And so we will know the angels, but they will be a slave to us. Even as the slaves, slaves were probably in the slave days. I'm not sure the abuses thereof. But as far as the recognition of their status, angels don't have a status like we do. And that would be called racist if you brought it into society today. But God is, if you want to call racist, it's called elect versus non-elect. He is racist. And that would be a topic that would be from the pulpits of America today. But we have a privileged estate with God like no other has. No other can have. He chose us before the foundation of the world to be in that caste system, which is actually one step under Israel today, I believe. Not today, but as a whole.
Talks about, too, God doesn't say to the slaves, whether it be white or black, revolt and do away with your master. It's
Right.
obey your master.
Yes, exactly.
So-
Yeah, that's right. Speak that in a black congregation. Wow! But they developed but yeah, God didn't say slavery was wrong. He gave us regulations regarding slavery. Oh, so now slavery's okay? By God, he had it that way. And you won't like some of the things that he says. But it's in the unchanging word of God. So those are all things we've moved away from because it's politically not correct or unpleasant, and unfortunately we are not better for it. I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. So here we see the bride and her husband notion carrying on. And again, that's one of the reflections of marriage. It's a reflection of Jesus Christ in relationship to the church, at least, but probably also God in relationship with Israel, but the chosen of mankind in relationship with the God who saved them.
So it's a type of covenant.
Yes, it is a covenant. Yeah, everything that we see in scriptures regarding to God in relationship to the elect of His is you can see resembled and reflected in marriage, and so absolutely. So, which is why it's so important for Christians to make it, and do it God's way if they at all possibly can, and those things happen. I understand that, but it's really a bigger thing for us because we can know better. We know better. So, and I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, "Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God." One of the things I reflect on this, God is triune in nature, and God the Father and God the Spirit have always been spirit, never able to be seen with the eyes of man. Will we be able to see him then, or will Jesus Christ always be the front and center? I wonder about that. Because what does triune look like? My brain does not comprehend that. My eyeballs might a little better than my brain does. I don't know. But what does that look like? Will we be able to see him in his fullness? It says here, he'll be with man. So anyway, that's one of my contemplations about the new heaven, new earth. And I want to see this wonderful entity that saved me. Something that was not worthy of salvation.
So would the glorified body that we have be able to withstand the Shekinah glory that emanates from God?
Those are questions I have. Will we see that, or will that always be shrouded from us? A quick, easy answer is, of course, he's going to be there in full view. But I think it's a quick answer that may not be entirely thought through.
Well, he's going to be there. Him and Jesus are going to be there because you don't ever have any darkness.
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be no darkness because the light will be perfect, which means it will bounce. There will be no shadow, I believe.
No sun.
There'll be no sun. There will be 12 months, though. Again, a reflection of this cosmos, the solar.
Will Jesus be the center of this new universe that will be created, new heaven and earth?
What do you mean by center?
Be like Father God's center of this universe. Will this be sort of the overall universe will the new universe be a sub sort of universe?
Again, we're thinking from this perspective. God makes something completely new where universe doesn't compute unless you're remembering back to this cosmos.
Well, I saw on YouTube this one preacher's preaching on that Jesus would be the center of the new universe, the new heaven and earth. So I don't know.
Yeah, and it says here and it says more God here than it does Jesus once we get to this point. Notice here, I saw from New Jerusalem coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride for her husband. There we're talking about God as we move through this. So maybe Jesus Christ held that kind of prominent central place in this cosmos, which indeed he does. That's why he's called the Christ, I believe, and that's why he showed up as a Christophany, and that's why he came, took on flesh and dwelt among us, shed his blood, saved us. That's the only thing God has written by God. That's for this book. When this book is closed, like you had suggested, where Jesus at the end of the millennium, well, maybe he's up there writing a new one. It's probably not going to be like this one. We are limited like that. We're limited in our creative juices to be kind of minded in a particular way. That's why Fords look like Fords and Chevys look like Chevys, because they have the certain engineers designing this thing, and they have a separate set of engineers. We're limited in our creative juices.
Yeah.
God isn't. So it might be just completely different. So that's where I would say it could be, but it might not be anything like that. The universe, is there going to be sun, moon, and stars in the new heaven, new earth? No, it says there won't be any sun. So what is it going to be out there? Different.
So Jesus is more than this, but since the fall of man, has Jesus been on a salvage mission to restore man or to its before sin state?
I would correct that by saying Jesus is on a restoration mission. I would go there for the elect only. The only elect. You see, and that's big evangelism churches, which Baptist denomination are, seeking to save that which is lost. Let's go out there and save the entire world for Jesus. God doesn't write it that way. So I would go with salvage mission for the elect.
The elect.
Yes. And the elect are few. If we truly did it God's way, I believe our churches, generally speaking, would be a lot smaller. Because the church is only where I believe evangelism is truly an outside the church gift. Now, there's people that come into the church and need salvation too. But we've made church the place where all come and can get saved. No, the church is a place where God's people gather to worship God, to serve God, to learn of God, and to there go out and do what God's bidding is. And we've got that messed up a little bit. And so all that to say is, if a person is not a Christian, well, that's pretty important. Anyway, those are some good things to think through instead of just coming up with a pat answer and just blowing through it. Yeah, those are good things to think about. But the new heaven, new earth, yeah. But I like that salvage mission. It is, but again, I would correct that to say it's for only the elect.
Yeah, because, he said, wide is the gate to hell.
Absolutely. We lose track of those verses.
And it's like, that tells you not everybody's going to heaven,
Yeah, exactly.
So if you got a wider gate, must be more of them going that way.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
It is, and it's easier to go that way. There's no restrictions there,
Only God knows this question, or this answer to this question, but percentage-wise, I wonder what the number is.
Yeah, you wonder.
Yeah, I'm sure, it's...
When you go back to Ezekiel, when he says, go out and number Israel, and this is Israel now, the ones elect of God's supposed to know, he says, take a third, shave off your hair, take a third and chop it up, take a third and blow it to the wind, take a third and throw it in the fire. Now what you have left, that's going to be the elect. Because Ezekiel actually says, is anybody getting a mark? Good mark. And so then that makes you think, man, how small is that number?
Yeah.
And it's going to fit in a 1,500 cubic mile place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking.
How many people is in that before it becomes overpopulated?
Yeah.
One of the commentaries I was looking at suggested that someone had predicted that maybe 20%.
20%? Oh, no, I think it's smaller than that.
Well,
I do.
I read somewhere one guy thought it was 8%, but...
Yeah. And now,
I would say 7 or 8%.
you see, I don't know where, but I would think 20% is too big.
But I didn't research how they got to come with that number. I don't know.
Yeah, that's...
I don't know what source they use, but, just grab a number.
Chris, you remember that? It's like, that sounds good to me. We just know it's narrow and few. And then when you read the other things in Scripture, it sounds like real few. So,
when you put Ezekiel in it, then you talk about,
which makes you wonder, knowing the deception of Christianity, even our own hearts we can't know. It tells us in Jeremiah. Looking at a round table like this, will we all be there? I hope so. But, tell me everybody doesn't do that in their church. Yeah, we're all going to be there. Yeah, and maybe one. Make your calling and election sure. God tells us on purpose with purpose that verse. Make sure we are, and that is only a reflection of what God has said. We are, and we ought to look at that too as Christians. Okay, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. Something I think is interesting here. God shall wipe away all their tears. It happens in the new heaven and the new earth. This is where I see that definitely happening. Of course, there'll be no more death. We got that as well, that we see a reflection of that earlier as well. In fact, we never die. The Bible tells us once we're saved, we're alive. And whatever life means per defined by God. But the no more sorrow, no more tears kind of here. And I wonder if, we go through the millennium, we'll have some time there, if there's not still crying. And what brings this up is someone had said, well, at the Bema there'll be, no more sorrow, no more tears. It says that for the new heaven and new earth. The Bema happened 1,000 years before that particular event. So we may still go through some sorrows during standing at the Bema. And I believe for myself personally, absolutely, that the Bema will not be a time of, Woody on Toy Story 1 giddiness. I'm going to be on my face plant on whatever I'm standing on because of the shame that I have chosen in those things before Christ. And only when he comes and with the anticipation of him saying, I love you still, will I be able to stand up and enter without worthiness to the next place he has me to be.
Hear him say, well done.
I want that. I want that. And so I would hope that for all his, and I surely want that for myself. He that sat upon the throne said, behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, write, for these words are faithful and true. Can you imagine the emotional release in that day? It's like finishing a project that you've been on for a long time and you would put the final coat of paint on it. It is done. Yeah. That's what it's going to be like for us. It is done. And you can kind of feel that emotional, we bear it every day. It's, even atmospheric pressure might be a part of reflection of that. We feel it every day. Can you imagine that? Just not. That's one of the joys of heaven, I think, is just be able to put your head on that pillow and be out like that. If you want to, sleep. Of course, I go to sleep pretty well anyway. But he said unto me, verse 6, it is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. And so there it talks about the water of life, and we see later on that it is indeed in the new heaven and new earth. He that overcomes shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. Now here we don't see Jesus Christ again talking about. We would see the Father and Son relationship here. So maybe it's the Father that's seen. If that is the case, then what about the Spirit? Again, there's three persons in relationship with us, involved with this creation. And here we see a fatherly suggestion, and his name is still God. Not even God the Father, just God, but we will be his son. That's the reflection of that prior relationship, ongoingly into eternity. But the fearful and unbelieving, abominable, murderers, fornicators, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars that have their part in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. That's the Gehenna. The fire and brimstone, fire that burns forever and ever, that's the Gehenna. That's the place where body, soul, and spirit is thrown into, as we saw in the previous chapter. And so they will all be there. And there came unto me one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of the 7 plagues, and talked with me, saying, come here, and I will show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. So here's the bride, the Lamb's wife, which we would consider the church, maybe to include Israel, as far as Old Testament economy, Israel, and millennium, all of Israel. And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem. Now the great city is defined as the new Jerusalem here. It's not Babylon anymore. The one that was to look like the great city. God says, here's the great city, the one that I intended. And before in Revelation we saw it's called the beloved city. But there's a distinction to make. We just can't blow through and just be willy-nilly about details. We have to pay attention as God gives them to us to have greater discernment. But yeah, this is the great city, the holy Jerusalem. descending out of heaven from God. So here is this. I kind of picture this as there's heaven and there's an escalator. Kind of two-way. Kind of like here we are going down to earth and I want to go back to heaven, going back up to heaven. You know, like a kid that rides the escalators because it's fun to do. Can you see me? I can see me doing that. I'm going to go down to earth. Oh, let me turn around. I'm going to go back up to heaven. Just go back and forth, back and forth.
Kind of like Jacob's ladder.
It could be a reflection of Jacob's ladder in that way. Sure could be. And I hadn't thought through that, but that's a good thought to develop on. Maybe God is giving.
This city or this heaven is 1,500 miles high. What floor are we going to be on?
Yeah. You wonder, is there going to be floors? Is there going to be some sort of Hollywood makeup of, that three-dimensional thing of being, so, yeah.
Well, it describes as being, is this described description or is the dimensions more of a cube or a pyramid?
It'd be a cube code, so it's here, the length and the breadth and height that are equal.
Equal, so it'd be a
It'd be
cube.
a perfect cube.
It'd be a perfect cube.
I would say perfect cube, but a pyramid has its notions as well, because it's going to be that high. It's just going to be a point, and then it's going to be that wide and that wide. It could be. And again, where did the Egyptians get the pyramid technology stuff from? Maybe God revealed it to them. Maybe God revealed it to them because it's a pretty spectacular, engineering feat that they did way back then. So, yeah. And so that's what I envisioned the heaven and the earth, kind of like a little escalator going up and down, having the glory of God, and her light was like a stone, most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. I will confess, even though I've known this for years, I do not understand how these different stones are. What color is one? Some of them are different colors, so I don't have that down. What's the value of the jasper stone? The jasper stone, I remember when I was in kindergarten, was was kind of a brown caramel color, and it was polished, and I had it glued to a piece of cardboard. That's all I know about jasper. And chalcedony and sardonyx, that's all I know. You get something like a pearl, I kind of got an idea. Amethyst, I got a kind of idea. But, some of these others I don't know.
The priest breastplate had those different kind of stones.
They had 12 of them, actually, to resemble each one of the tribes of Israel. Yeah, and they had these on there as well. Yeah. The wall had a great and high, had 12 gates, and the 12 gates, 12 angels. Names written on the gates, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. Now we're starting to see the memorabilia of this in the new place, the new heaven. And I believe I call that the Smithsonian. It'd be a place that we can go and says, 12 pearls, 12 tribes of Israel. Yeah, I remember that. And we'll have a perfect memory, so we'll remember all those things. And on the east 3 gates, on the north 3 gates, on the south 3 gates, on the west 3 gates, remember that was Israel going through the wilderness. They 3 was like that everywhere they picked up and parked, that's where it was. They actually essentially made their own town, and it was still the same number. This was still, 210 Southwest 7th Street. So over here, it's just in a different location as they went from place to place in the wilderness. And I'm not sure the tribes didn't mix up neighborhoods when they were there, but you're talking over 1 million people are meandering through the wilderness. That's a pretty good sized city.
Yeah.
So, but this is a memory of that. And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. That's the remembrance of the church age. Yes. And first of all, this isn't for us, this is for God, but we do see it. It's given for us to know we'll see it. It's like, that's where we are. And we'll see the 12 foundations as it reflects the church age. And he that talked with me had a golden reed to measure the city, the gates of it, and its wall. And the city lies 4 the length of it as large as the breadth. He measured the city with a reed, 12,000 furlongs. The length and breadth and height of it are equal. 12,000 furlongs is approximately 1,500 miles. So 1,500, and then 1,500. I don't know if there's going to be stories. I'm not sure. Because we have gravity, we think about. Gravity. I wonder how much I'll weigh up there. How do we know there is gravity? How do we know that there's going to be a pull between two masses up there? That's all this cosmos stuff. It might be completely different. So, yeah. So, anyway, but it's going to be 1,500 miles square, this place. And he measured the wall. This is that wall that you talk about, Brother Larry. He measured the wall of it, 144 cubits, according to the measure of a man. 144 cubits, they say, is approximately 18 inches. So 144, add half that to that. You got 144, it'd be 12,000. What's it come up with? 216 feet. Yeah, 216 feet. That's a pretty tall wall.
But that's according to the measure of a man.
Yeah, and
Because angels,
Angels might be taller.
longer arms or whatever.
yeah, I don't know. And it says the measure of a man, so we're a man, so I can measure your elbow and measure your elbow and measure your elbow, get an average, at least some sort of ballpark notion, so. And then we could even include the antediluvian men, which typically, when I say typically, many of them were giants, so maybe add theirs in too. But John is writing this. God is giving it to us. So maybe it was John's elbow that he was going from. So keep that in mind too. And that is as of an angel. Yeah, and it's interesting. It says as of an angel, and that's a curious point. What does that mean in the new heaven and new earth as of an angel? Because I see where you got the angel thing now. And the building of the wall was it as of jasper, and the city was pure gold like clear glass. Now that's got to be a spectacle. If you got a foundation of pure gold, do you see what's under the pure gold? What is under the pure gold? Is there anything under the pure gold? Or is it just keep kind of see through and see through and see through and see through? It's fabulous just to think about. And the foundation of the wall of the city, if it's fabulous to think about, how fabulous, much more fabulous is it going to be there?
Yeah.
Is
There's
that-
probably not words in our vocabulary
Right.
humanly possible to describe it.
Stand in awe.
Yeah.
Awe.
Well, let's talk about that foundation there a minute. So if you got a building that's 1,500 miles high, it's going to take a lot of foundation.
Well, we say that again, thinking from
But
the
it may be just floating out.
it may be just floating out there. Today we have all of engineering, which is, it's the natural laws. I forget what all I went to be an engineer for a while, and I couldn't cut that shoe leather. But anyway, there's one math after another kind of math, another kind of math. That's this cosmos stuff. It might not be that at all in this.
But it also says the foundations of the wall of the city. Mm-hmm. Not the city, but the wall. Foundations of the wall.
Interesting. It sure does. A lot to ruminate on. Yeah, sure is.
So the foundation of the walls means that the walls are sitting on the foundation.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, the foundation of the wall of the city were garnished with all manner of precious stones. You know what I think is interesting is these are the rocks / elements that God chooses to remember. There's other things, but he chooses to remember these specifically. The rest of it's dung as far as he's concerned. The rest of it's hellfire stuff. He doesn't have this other stuff. I mean, you don't see sulfur in here. You don't see plutonium in here. You see these various different things. God is probably saying, you know what? I like that from that creation. I'm going to have it around for me to remember for a long time. Yeah. Foundation of the wall of the city are garnished with all manner of precious stones. First foundation was jasper. Second, sapphire. The third, chalcedony. The fourth, emerald. Fifth, sardonyx. The sixth, sardius. Seventh, chrysolite. The eighth, beryl. The ninth, topaz. The 10th, chrysosporus. The 11th, jacinth. The 12th, amethyst. And again, there's that number 12 again.
Yeah.
And the 12 gates were 12 pearls. That's a curiosity to me. How's a pearl made? It's because that, from what I understand, that oyster got a piece of sand in there, couldn't get rid of it.
Yeah.
And it starts to form this substance around it. In other words, there's a little bit of impurity in the middle of that pearl. God has one on.
Chemical reaction is going on over there.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. Here is heaven, a place of perfection, and God says that was created by a little bit of imperfection. Wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason why it is. I don't know, but I always thought that was curious. Why pearl? But it's a big one. And it started by something that was impure or didn't fit. I don't know. I still have a curiosity about that. So, anyway, 12 pearls. Each one 12 gates was 1 pearl. The street of city gold was pure gold, as it were transparent glass. And I saw no temple in it, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God did light it, and the Lamb is the lamp of it. Okay, it's interesting. It said it didn't need the sun. Does it say there isn't one? I don't know. It's just a little technical. I thought right here, because I was no sun, no moon, because we don't need it. He will be the light of it,
They
but
said didn't need it.
didn't need it. Yeah. So.
Does that mean it didn't exist?
Yeah, it's a curious note. I'm just thinking about that now, and they were trying to get a picture of his heaven. And the nations of them who saved shall walk in the light of it, and the kings of the earth do bring their glory and honor into it. The gates of it shall not be shut at all by day, for there shall be no night there, and they shall bring the glory and honor of the nations into it. Now, this is where I see this little thing that brings with a curiosity. There shall be no way, let's see what it say. No wise enter into it anything that defileth, neither he that worketh abomination or maketh a lie, but they who are written in the Lamb's book of life. What do you mean can't get in? I thought they were all in hell. This is what I thought was curious, is to say, well, they can't get in. What do you mean they can't get in? I thought they weren't even there. This is where I start thinking about a one-way mirror that you can see, but you can't get there. You can't get in. There's no entrance. You can see. It's kind of like, let me give a reflection of what happened before Jesus Christ came, and there was a Peace Street side and a Misery Mile side to Sheol. They could see over there, but they can't get there. Abraham bosom. That's the story. It tells us the Sheol or the Hades before Jesus Christ led captivity captive. There was a gulf that they couldn't get between. They couldn't get there. And here we see, I think, maybe reflected again here, they're looking in. And this is where I get the notion that perhaps one of the worst places is hell. This is the closest place to this right here. You can see it. You can almost smell it. Maybe you can hear it. But you can't go there.
You can't experience
forever. Existing in the worst of torments forever. I would say that would be the worst place. Not to know what you missed, but to know full well what you did miss and be reminded of it in maybe a visual and an audible and maybe in other physical ways. But you're never going there.
Well, just that aspect of hell is torture.
Yes.
Is a type of torture.
Yes. And I would say that's where I get the notion of perhaps the worst place in hell is the closer place to whatever saying can't happen here. And I'm not saying it is or it isn't. It's just my mind trying to understand, why does it say they can't get in? Of course they can't get in. Well, wait a second. It says they can't get in. Maybe they're trying. Maybe they want to. But they know they can't. And we know they can't. Yeah. Do we see them? I don't think we'll see them, because there'll be no more sorrow, no more tears. I don't know. Either we're just completely oblivious to that's how they're made. That's where they are. They made their path. God chose their path, but it all makes sense. And we'll just go on forever seeing that torment going on. But I'm maybe not able to think out of my own mind like right now. And I'm pretty cold on a lot of things. I'm pretty hardcore election. They've been created for hell. They're going to go there. I really have no sympathies for that so much. I do a little if I have to conjure it up. Yeah. But I really think when you're seeing these people just crying out and wailing in pain, there's not a sympathy of us that may still go out. And so I don't think we're going to see it. It doesn't talk about us not being able to go there. It talks about them not being able to go into the new heaven, new earth. So I'm thinking we won't even know these one-way mirrors, but that's going to be one of the greater degrees of judgments in hell. And let's go ahead and read on through 6, because that's still in the new heaven, new earth. This is where it seems like 21 should have ran 5 more verses. And he showed me a pure river of water of life. That's that water of life we talked about there earlier. Clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. Now, it says throne of God and of the Lamb. You might say, well, there's God, and how's the Lamb factor in? Well, maybe that was the man part of Jesus Christ. Obviously, it's a lamb. That wouldn't be something God. So that's the Son of Man emblem of Jesus Christ defined here. In the midst of the street of it, on either side of the river, There was the tree of life, which bore 12 kinds of fruits and yielded her fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. First of all, there's 12. Again, there's not a sun, moon, star thing going on. Again, it's a remembrance. This cosmos has a solar system. We understand it to be 12 months. And that 12 is reflective of a whole bunch of other 12s. And here's a tree bearing off 12 kinds of fruit, each in its, what does it say there, month? Every month. How long is a month going to be? Maybe 30 days, like the Jews have it down. And it says the leaves will be for the healing of the nations. What healing has to go on in the new heaven and the new earth? I think it's emotional healing. I think sin leaves its deadly scar on our soul every time we sin. And that still has yet to be healed. And it might be just you have a scar and eventually a scar completely goes away. I think of the leaves of the nation, I think of a tea drink or something like that. Or maybe you're just eating the leaf too, but when you think of leaves, you think of tea.
Go back to 21 verse 4, it says the former things are passed away. So would that be everything, even our memories?
That's a good question. Is this healing have to do with our memories? At least the memories of the sorrows. We're going to be reminded of this cosmos. In fact, it's our name. We'll be given a new name. Will be a memory of who we are and who we were created to be as far as God was concerned. So there'll be that memory, at least that's being remembered every time he calls our name, or we remember our name, or see our rock by our place with our name on it, which no other man knows.
We're sitting there in this beautiful place. Why would we want to worry and think about all the stupid things that we did in the past?
Why would we? It's not that we want to. It's just that it's there for us to if we did. But it's we don't want to think about the stupid things we did in the past, but we remember them. And today it serves as a purpose so we don't do that stupid thing again, or maybe share it with someone else so they don't do that stupid thing again. But none of that is going to be there in the new heaven. You're exactly correct. This is the place where I can't think totally how it's going to be because I'm still stuck in this.
No, Satan's not going to be there.
Oh no.
He won't be tempted.
No, be no temptation, none of that. And I think that's this cosmos that God had that story written.
There's no evil,
None.
tree of good and evil.
No tree of knowledge of good and evil. Only a tree of life. That we can drink of the water freely. And do we need to, or do we just want to? I think Adam and Eve needed to drink of eat of the tree of life. They didn't need to. It was the one that was available. The one that they ate of was the one that they didn't have, which was the knowledge. They didn't not know good. They didn't know evil. And they didn't know the good contrast to evil. That's what came with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God didn't want us to have that knowledge. He just wanted us to be there with him as his most special creation. That's all he wanted. That's where and we see reflections of not many wise, not many noble come to Christ, because their intellect stands in their way of coming. The intellect is the very thing that caused this all in the first place. Tinging on the intellect. Oh, you don't know some things. What? Oh, you don't know. Oh, no, God knows it. As soon as you know, you'll be as gods, knowing between good and evil. Oh, God doesn't want us to know all those things. Look at Solomon as another case in point. How much knowledge does Solomon have that God says, that's not what I intended for you to know? Hello, Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
Hello, Israel broken in two. That was because of Solomon's doings. Wisdom, pursuit of wisdom.
Yeah, he got into some weird stuff.
Yeah, he did. And it's because of his wives. He didn't need to go there. And it was all in the pursuit, the lust of knowledge. Yeah. So those are good questions, Brother Larry. How are we thinking in this? Will we remember? Will we know? Is this the healing of the nations, kind of like phasing out those little, pixels of memory of this particular time where we don't remember it at all? I don't know. Those are good thoughts.
Then in 27 it says, in no wise, or I guess, or way.
Way, yeah.
will enter into it anything that defileth, neither whatsoever worketh abomination or maketh a lie. Because if that's not going to be there, are we going to be remembering when we did those things?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. If it is, it's not going to be an effect on us at all. But I don't want to throw that out, because it may be that the healing of the nations is indeed part of that wash that's happening by this tree. There shall be no more curse, but the throne of God and the Lamb of it shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. And they shall see his face, and his name shall be in their foreheads. And there shall be no night there. They need no lamp, neither the light of the sun. For the Lord God giveth them light, and they shall reign forever. And there's the forever and ever, the double thing, which is, it's a curious thing. I'm going to start paying attention to that every time it says forever and ever versus forever. Because you just wonder, this we know is eternity, and there it is used again, as we saw other places in there. So that's the new heaven. This is the picture of the new heaven. Now, next week, 5 and on, we'll be back to reality. Here we are again. Okay, spaceship has come back to Earth. That's next week, when we find out, and they kind of like the churches were before we ever got started on this calendar. And this is the stuff that people like to see. But they don't realize that the first chapters of Revelation were so important, because if they don't get that, they will never see all these things. It's just fancy. It's fanciful. And that's not what Revelation is first. Revelation first is be ready. And it's hard, but there's a good day coming afterwards. I mean, that's a real short version of Revelation. We're in an age where the church is not really getting it. They're not really teaching it. They're not really hearing it. They're not really doing it. They're where they are, kind of like it was at the end of the Old Testament as well. I believe we're here, but God's going to do a work. He will finish his work in the church, and I believe the way we talk about in the trumpets. But anyway, a lot of fanciful notions. You can go off on these things, and I think it's good for us to do that. Yeah. It really does. It takes our mind off of flawed place where we are, including ourselves, and to live our life in such a way where we'll be best prepared for this one coming and appreciate God for it. Because we are. The rest aren't. It tells us, verse 27, the rest aren't. They're going to look, they're going to fly, they're going to try, they're going to strive. All added to the existing wailing, gnashing of teeth, worm never dies, fires never quench. This is additional. Because they can see it and smell it and hear it and want it and be reminded of it and not get it.
James or Allen 1 asked about Christ going to be there. Well, in verse 3, it says that the throne of God and of the Lamb
yes.
will be in it.
Yes. Again, the Jesus Christ will be there. Again, what is Jesus? We move one step less mysterious, but still super mysterious, more mysterious we can fathom. What does all God, all man look like? What does Jesus Christ as the Lamb look like, really, in its truest form? We see him here symbolically described. Does he look like something with woolly hair that we can kind of smell the lanolin by and make ourselves the wolves? No! I believe this is a symbolic description of this Jesus that did all this for us.
Verse 4 says, they shall see his face and his name. Don't say theirs. It says his.
Yeah. Again, Jesus Christ, if that's the case, then Jesus Christ is the anointed one. The person of the Godhead that will be forever for us to see and to be with. Even though God is still there too. Again, it's
one and the same.
Jesus says that. You've seen me, you've seen the Father. Come on, guys. It seems so easy, Jesus. I'm not getting it that quick. I'm sorry, Jesus. I'm dumb as a rock. Not even that one you got there, the one that you threw in hell. I'm pretty dumb. We're going to have a good time in heaven. New heaven, new earth is going to be really good. We're going to do this all the time. And these work? Well, yeah. Well, he's got an assignment going on here. I get there. I mean, my way. I'm going to powwow with Jesus in the middle of it. We're just talking.
I got a question on. It talks about the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. Mm-hmm. Are you talking about some of the people that are born during the millennium?
No, I believe those are. I believe there'll be a portion of every kindred, tribe, nation, tongue, small portion, that will be a reminder of God. Here we are His most special creation, but some of them have big ears, some of them have dark skin, some of them have slant eyes. They're all marvelously created by God. And God is going to have a remnant of every single way, which will be nations and kings, whether it be physical differences, we would call social differences, mental differences. God is going to have a piece of every single one of that from this cosmos to remind him of how magnificent it was. And those are the people who's going to be in here. Yeah, every little bit. You know, David was a king. At least we know that one's going to be there. You know, and he was Jew. We know that's going to be there. We know there's some black people. I know there's a black person right now who used to do revivals. I forget his name now, but man, fabulous. He's going to be there. You know, I don't know any Chinese people who are saved. I don't know any Chinese people at all. Unless, you know, I don't know them. But there's going to be a bit of every single one. And I think that's why the church age was part of God's plan. Because all of this the most special creation God has ever made after his image called man. He's going to have a little piece of every single kind there was to remind him of that most special creation he had. Which may be the most special. I still wonder if it's not the most special it will ever be. Past, we call it present, or future. We will always be God's most special creation. He'll make a lot of more special creations. And I wonder if that's not why the seriousness of our violations of God's way. Because he says, you're most special, you're most responsible. You don't do it, I'm going to describe for you where it's going to be if you don't. It's because we're that most special creation. God doesn't do that to the animals. God doesn't do that to fish.
In eternity future, will we be helping God in the creation? Whatever he creates next.
It might be. He did that with the angels in one spot, you know, with regard to, you know, what should I do down there? I could send down there and make all those prophets liars. Oh, okay, good, we'll do that. It's kind of weird how God put everything together. And I asked an angel, hey, I could be a liar to him. Oh, yeah, go do that. He could do that in another creation. It could be complete. The sky's the limit as far as God's creative ability. Even that's not a limit. So yeah, it could be any way, in an infinite number of ways, because there's going to be eternity for him to do one, and then the other may have several going on at once. I mean, what do y'all think about God having more than one creation going on right now?
Well, who says he couldn't?
Who says he couldn't?
Yeah.
I kind of think he's got one, not a bunch going on right now. Of course, if there were more than one, it would be completely unrelated, I think. Or does that mean extraterrestrials are part of the one that he created out there and not to be in here, and they happen to accidentally find a wormhole to get here?
Now, could an infinite God have infinite cosmos?
Yes, he can have. Yeah, so those are all things to think through. I tend to be simple-minded to think this is the only one he's got going on right now. But
Yeah, I think that if he built this one, why couldn't he build one somewhere else?
yeah, he could.
100,000 of them.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying, those are all valid contemplations. I'm just saying my simple brain thinks he's got one going on right now. But that's me. I think he had one before that with the angel with two wings, and then maybe another one before that. Like you said, God can do an infinite number at any different time and just have them all going at once, and infinitely late. It's like... I'm barely getting one. So, yeah, it's just possible to have that. And the person with a better brain than mine can think, oh, yeah, I think he's got this one going on, not happening here, and I can think about that too. I'm barely thinking about the one that's coming later that I'm jumping up and down volunteering for.
You know, what's scary, I know this is kind of off base, but it relates somewhat to it. But you hear some of the greatest minds talking about, you know, simulations and stuff like that. And they got these video games now. They say there'll be some point in the future, maybe 10, 15, 20 years from now, where there would be no distinction between what's real and what's not real.
Yeah, I think if man left alone by himself may go there, but God has a plan that doesn't end there.
Right.
And so that's for us as believers, we can see how these things are going down there.
Yeah.
And I think we ought to pull and tug which way is right.
Right.
But know that they're never going to get there.
Right.
Oh, what about colonization on a foreign planet? It's not going to happen. We ain't got that much time left.
Yeah.
You can go to Mars and look at it if you want. You can even put a man up there. But I'm telling you, there's not going to be another station with another place, another world, No, that happens here.
Yeah.
They've never found a place yet on another star that it has any life. Maybe, possibly, amoeba thing? I don't know. Even they're speculating. It's blue, so it must be water. Oh, maybe it's methane. What? So I think we're smarter than we think we are.
Yeah.
The smartest people are smarter than they think they are.
Yeah.
God is saying He makes the wisdom of man foolishness.
Yeah.
And so we're not. When we get to the bowl judgment, no one's going to be able to fix anything, and that's just around the corner. Let alone, is that real or not really? I really like my TV.
Didn't there a scripture says the wisdom of man is foolishness to God?
Yeah, I started my quiet times in Corinthians. It says there in the first couple chapters. Yeah. So it's the foolishness of preaching that God chooses. Say you're going to die, go to hell, need Jesus, and the person who's a child of God, might be the smartest man in the world, says, "Wow, you're right. You're not as smart as me, but I'm going to listen to you because, that's the way, the truth, and the life." God does it that way. He doesn't want us to be smart. He just wants us to be really His.
Right.
Yeah. So, anyway, all right. Cool beans. Heaven is fun to think about. I had my mother-in-law says, Where do you come up with those? I said, think about it. Well, think about it. You read the scriptures and talk about this, you think, wow, what does that tree look like? There's water on tree on both sides, water going through it. I wonder what that water's going to taste like. I wonder what that gold's going to feel like. I wonder what my little hut's going to look like. I wonder what my rock's going to look like. I wonder what my name's going to be.
I hope one of those fruits watermelon.
God's looking down and said, "My son, I got one just for you. You like it."
Orange.
Yeah, he's gonna know. I get well up there. He says, "Wow, he did it." We're gonna remember back to this time and say, "Yep, he was listening, wasn't he?"
Yeah,
Oh, all right. Let's go ahead.